So another way that you can analyze a passage is by using something called the ICE method. So this is something that I came up with almost kind of by accident, but it's been really helpful for students, especially if you struggle to kind of analyze the passage and figure out how the author is constructing their argument. If you feel like, oh, I just read something and I have no idea what they kind of said, and then also in the scenario of if you don't really understand why the author used a certain piece of evidence or like a statement. So what you'll be doing as you read is you're going to categorize each sentence mentally as either an introduction sentence, a conclusion, or the E category, which falls under example, evidence, or explanation. So introduction sentences are kind of like just the main ideas and topics that the author is throwing at you. So a lot of times if the author is just giving you some kind of piece of information, but they haven't really backed it up with any kind of examples, that would be an introduction because this is the first time you're learning the new information the author is giving you. Conclusion sentences are usually located somewhere near the end of the paragraph, and they're going to tell you why the stuff that you just read in the paragraph is important, and it also might tell you what's the impact of the things the author explained or how different ideas in the passage are connected together. And then you have example, evidence, kind of explanation sentences, which are those that kind of like support the introduction sentences that the author kind of brought in. So if the author makes a claim and then they give you an example to follow it up, something like a statistic or just explaining what they were saying earlier, that would be like an example sentence. Now do keep in mind that some sentences can be more than one category. So sometimes the author will make a claim and then within the same sentence give some kind of explanation to back it up. So that sentence would be an intro and an example. Now, if you feel like you're already doing other things to analyze the passage and throwing in ICE is a little bit too much to keep track of at once, that's totally okay. You can use ICE in the scenario of, hey, I read this sentence and I have no idea what they are talking about. It's really helpful to basically just try to understand why the author mentioned some piece of information. So you can use ICE when you're basically stuck on something that you read, instead of doing it for each sentence. And again, you don't have to write ICE down on a sheet of paper. It's a mental exercise because it's just a framework in order for you to figure out how do I analyze this passage. And some of my students even reword it. So instead of saying intro, they say, hey, is this a new claim or new information? Instead of conclusion, they say, is this some kind of summary statement? And instead of example, they say, does this back up something I read in the passage earlier? Definitely give ICE a try for a couple days, a couple passages every single day to see if this is something that you want to incorporate when you're reading a passage.